This is level 2, lesson 5A, called the creative power of vision. The creative power of vision. I'm going to jump into the introduction before I read the opening verse here, but because it's a common verse that people know. Where there is no vision, the people perish. So, and that can apply really to any area of life, of course. We're talking about spiritual things, but if you don't have a vision for where you're going, you kind of get discouraged. You kind of get depressed easily. You kind of get set off track because you have no purpose. You have no goal, no whatever it is you're looking for. It's like, what am I doing this for? And that can just sap the energy out of what you're striving to do. Would you agree with that? All right. You guys know which pages you're on there? In Genesis chapter 13, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward, for all the land which you see, I will give it to you and to your descendants forever. Now imagine the kind of vision that's placed in Abram at that point. All the land that you see, you look in every direction, just make a big old 360, it's all yours. That kind of gives you some vision, right? Wow. He didn't know a lick of it at the moment, but God had just promised to him that that was all his, right? And to his descendants. So that's really a phenomenal thing to understand about vision. It can give you passion and energy for life. In the introduction, vision is an essential ingredient in Christian life and ministry. And I read the Proverbs verse already. Life without vision is drudgery and boring routine. And I can tell you for myself, I'm not a big fan of routine too much. I wish I were maybe more. I might need a little bit of that, but not as much. Life with spirit-inspired vision is productive and fulfilling. In other words, you see all the pieces and how they fit in. After Abram separated from Lot, God gave him a vision of his divine plan. He saw the vastness of the land that God wanted to give before he ever possessed any of it. The creative power of that vision propelled Abram forward and kept his faith strong, even during times of severe testing. And this even goes on to when God promised him a son through his wife Sarah. When God gives us a vision of something, we see it in its completed form. I want to just pause there for a moment, just kind of explain that a little bit. I've often taught that one of the things you have to understand about God is God, we get all muddled up with all of our failures and shortcomings and all the kind of stuff, the things we do wrong. God is always looking at us with vision. He sees what he's called you to do. He sees what he's purposed you to do. He sees the finished product. So in other words, God looking at Daniel, and maybe right now Daniel might think, I don't know, maybe Daniel thinks he's just all that in a bag of chips. But he might look at himself and say, oh, I got this flaw and this failure and this. But God looks at him and says, I see what you're going to be. And so God operates from vision to do the pieces of the work that he promised he would do from now until Jesus comes, to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, both exciting things and also some challenging things, because you understand, challenging things are really the things that make us grow. If we all lived all in comfort, guess what? You'd just be a blob, a worthless blob at that. It's the challenging things that cause you to press in and grow. But what I'm saying is God works on that vision, and he sees you, and he molds you based on that. He doesn't get discouraged. He knows what needs to be done, right? So vision does the same to us. We see something like, we kind of catch it, right? Pastor Bob, I'm sure there's lots of parts of what he does. He kind of sees what it's going to be. God's kind of revealed it to him. He sees it, and even though this might go off askew or this might go off track, he knows, okay, but I know what God's doing, and I can maybe see where that fits, and I can work through that. It gives you motivation to move through what otherwise might be overwhelming challenges, right? Yeah. We see what it will be before it ever comes into existence. The power of this vision motivates us to wait in faith for its fulfillment, and really that speaks to faith. Once I have a vision, I can have faith. I see what's not visible at this point, but I see it already. Does it make sense? That's kind of a definition of faith. All right, Roman numeral 1. God gave Abram a great vision. Interesting how the first blank is vision, right? And we just read the verses where that is. And this vision, number 2, has 5 major parts to it. The first one, A, is seeing. And it involves separating from Lot. That's an interesting name too, by the way. But it's I'm sure it's Hebrew, right?
What was that word again?
The first blank was vision. The second blank is seeing.
Spell it for me.
Seeing, Seeing.
Oh, okay.
Can you see it now?
I can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Just checking. Lot represents worldly, carnal believers. If you know the story of Lot, you know that Abram said, hey, you pick which way you want to go, and that's yours, and I'll take the rest. Abram looked around and said, oh, this looks really good, and he went there. But he didn't see it in a prophetic way. He didn't see it in a godly way, because he didn't understand that was what he was basically looking at. He's going, ooh, and I'm going to use these terms, and you're going to have a different impression of it, but understand this is not how Lot sees it. Oh, Sodom and Gomorrah looks beautiful. Looks gorgeous, right? Now, we know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah and what it was all about, but again, he was operating in the flesh. He wasn't operating with vision of the vision of God. He wasn't seeing it, right? He set his vision on the things that are down here in the grime and the gook, if you want to put it that way. God reserves vision for those who choose a higher path, a real vision. I want something more in life. I don't want just the 9 to 5, the house, the car, the blah, 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 right? I have something more that I'm desiring in my life. I want to see God give me purpose. I want to make an impact. Lot's vision was short range. Abram's was long range. Sometimes the walk of a powerful leader can be lonely because he's chosen to focus on eternal things rather than temporary. Okay? If you're a companion of those who are like Lot, you'll never have a vision for souls. You'll never have a vision for growth in the church. Right? You will not have vision, period. And a fleshly vision, which is just, kind of doing the things that obtain material things, which we know are not lasting. And do not always bring joy. It's interesting. And again, I know movies are not always a real depiction. Lots of times I'll watch a movie about maybe it's like historical or whatever, some character, and I'll get on Wikipedia, which also is not the most reliable source either, but kind of gives you a general gist. And I was watching the movie Elvis, the one that just came out recently, and I thought, man, I didn't really know the story of Elvis that much. It's pretty sad, right? He had a lot of fun in the beginning and this and that, but his marriage fell apart, got hooked on drugs, was basically bankrupt to some degree, And we look at Elvis and go, oh, Elvis! I wouldn't want Elvis's life. And the reason why is because he didn't really have a vision for something more. It was just things, right? I mean, he had a passion for singing, entertaining, and all that kind of stuff, but he didn't speak into a vision for what his life should be. Honestly, to some degree, Elvis should still be around, joining his grandchildren, right? All that kind of stuff. But again, if you have an earthly vision, it doesn't always last. B, walking. Walking, our blank is walking. Walk through the land. Having vision is the first step, but walking it out is the second. Okay, so Abram walked around the land of Israel, claiming his vision, just like Joshua walked around Jericho. A walkthrough is a simulated vision. When my wife and I took on our first church as lead pastors, because we did do that for a time in our life, we got in. Now this is ridiculous. Some of you know I'm not mechanical, not very much at all. Okay, people ask me, "Is this my car? Is it a 3-cylinder or 4-cylinder?" I don't know. Okay, but when we took on our first church, they were in the middle of a church building project. They had the shell. It still needed to be sheetrocked inside. Still needed, carpet, tiling, electrical, lights, cleaning, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I did tile the entryway. I did a fabulous 2 doors, like an angle, and I did a circular tile. It comes in both ways and it's circular. I like to go by there sometimes just to look at it whenever we're in that area. Anyway, but when we first got there, we walked through the building. And even though we were probably the last people that we would have picked to do something like that, to jump in the middle of something like that, suddenly we had vision, right? We got home that night after we tried out for the church, and we both were just jabbering away. We just saw God had given us the vision. We're in the natural, we're like, hello, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. But in the spirit, we had seen it, right? So a walkthrough is like a simulated vision. It's like actors kind of walking through their scene, where they're going to stand, and all that kind of stuff, right? Get a feel for it. For spiritual vision to come to pass, the leader must first walk through the vision, preparing for it. What is it going to ask for? What is needed for it? Okay? So we need to walk through our vision for reaching new people. We need to walk through our vision for what home groups. And again, we're going to be talking a lot more about home groups as we go along here. Let God give you the vision. Okay? Even though you rehearse it and go over it, it's got to be from Him. It's got to come from Him to have any kind of real meaning. So seeing it and then walking through it. And see, training. Okay? It says training. He armed His trained servants. The third step to fulfilling your vision is training, which means to narrow, to kind of get it shaped, to dedicate, to initiate, right? Without a vision, people perish. But oftentimes, it's true that people that don't train or prepare themselves for the vision also perish. Okay? Everybody in the church is unique. Everybody has abilities to which can be used to help build the church, right? And we need to put ourselves in a place where I can, be something other than just an average bill-paying, grass-mowing believer that just shows up. But rather that I'm a soul winner, that I'm a disciple, that I am something that has meaning, that I have purpose, that I can accomplish something for the kingdom of God. And I have to prepare for that. That's kind of what some of these classes are for, to talk about some of those things, to challenge you, to think about what are some of the things in my life that I need to modify, to be transformed in so that I can really be ready and fulfill what God's speaking into my heart to do. Okay? The purpose of home groups is not to birth groups, but to disciple people. Okay? And we need to prepare for that. D, giving. Giving. In Genesis 14, it says He gave him tithes of all. Right? The fourth principle of fulfilling vision is to become a giver to others. Now, every time we say that kind of word, we say giving, giver, first thing we all go to is money. But that's not the only thing. In fact, sometimes it's far more to what can I do to give of myself to the body, to the pastor, to the leaders. What can I do? How can I serve, right? Abram shared God's blessings with Melchizedek. That's a name of somebody you have to read about in the Bible. He was a priest of God, and Abram gave the tithe to him. And as he gave, he recognized that there would be a multiplication. If we're stingy, if we're holding on too tightly, we'll never multiply. If we're not sharing our blessing, we'll stunt our growth, right? So you have to learn to be a giver, to serve, to be willing to serve under somebody or whatever, and work into their vision so that God can put seed into yours. Does that make sense? Okay? All right? So find someone who has a need. Find someone that you can be a blessing to. E, believing. Genesis 15:6. He believed in the Lord. Man, how goodness, that's really essential to your vision, isn't it? How in the world, if you don't believe it, if God had said, I'm going to give this all to you, and Abram had said, whatever, we wouldn't hear much of Abram in the story from that point forward, right? He became fully persuaded of the vision. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Hebrews 11:6. And guess what? God will always test your faith in the vision. Because sometimes you're going to be challenged. Are you still going to stick with it? Are you still going to push through what your vision is from God? In chapter 15, it says that Abram passed through a horror of great darkness. The enemy sought to intimidate. And that's a big one. That's almost worth a lesson right there. Intimidate, harass, and steal the vision. But you have to persevere. The vision is not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. It requires work. It requires pressing through. Let me tell you, I can understand it completely. There's a lot of times where I feel like, I'm like, where's the pieces of what I can have this vision? And I'm like, okay, how are we getting there? And I'll get confused and whatever. And I'll say, and I'm just, God, show me the path. I don't want to give up on this. Because it's very easy within the church to just become comfortable. I'm just looking for things to make my life easier. But God didn't call us to necessarily have this comfortable, easy life. He's called us to have a great life. You're so much further ahead of us on the curve there, Paul. The up life. God's called us to have when we talk about great life, I'm talking about awesome, energetic, passionate, just life, right? I sometimes tell people that I am amazed a little bit at what I have never been one to have a lot. When you're pastoring is not always a lucrative career. Just throwing it out there. A lot of times you're doing something else to pay for your ability to do the pastoring work. It's just the way it is. And yet, I have been, I tell my wife, 17 different countries. A lot of them, not all of them for ministry, but a lot of them for ministry. And I'm like, how did that happen? Right? How did that happen? Been all over the country. My wife and I, when we were on our trip a few years back, we were able to hit the 50th state that we've been in together. Not just when we were growing up, because I was in a lot of states growing up. If you don't know this, I moved across country about 5 times when I was growing up. But together. And it's amazing. You got to press in. And listen to this one. The battle is always the hottest just before the breakthrough. Ooh, man, you ought to put that on a t-shirt. The battle is always the hottest. And I've told you that before. Sometimes I'll feel like like right now, I'm telling you right now, I'm in a season of just kind of like a battle. I feel like it's not like, oh, I'm falling apart or anything, but I just feel like I'm getting hammered in some way. And I'm like, come on, God, I'm trying to get to this, right? But here's the thing I know. Often when that's occurring, it's an indicator to me something big's about to happen. It's kind of a powerful thing to think about. And it holds you in. See, when we want to separate ourselves and see things with God's vision, walk through that vision, train ourselves and others to obtain that vision, give to others. I'm going through the points, by the way, if you didn't catch that. Give to others who are also in the vision or have their vision, and you're blessing them. And then faithfully press in and wait upon God to bring the vision to pass. And you see, and when we talked at the beginning of this about the creative power, what I'm talking about is that it's not just sitting still. It's pushing forward. It's seeking God. What is it that I need God to do this aspect? Give me purpose. And again, I'm not trying to fulfill something on my own strength or my own understanding. Does God draw upon my experience and all that kind of stuff? Yes, He does. But He also, it's like there's a 20-piece puzzle, and your life is supplying about anything from 8 to 12 of the pieces, maybe. Sorry. It means I'm really going, baby. But there's the other 8 pieces that are really important pieces. You ever been on a puzzle? Right? What do you do when you first start a puzzle? Anybody? Come on, you guys know.
You get the corners.
Yeah, you get the corners, you get the edges, right? The easy stuff. The easy stuff. A lot of the pieces that you have, which are necessary, are the easy pieces. The God pieces are all the ones kind of in the middle. Like remember, it has an outie and an innie, and it's got an outie on top and a flat, and there's like 1,000 pieces that look like it, right? And you need God's pieces to make it work. Otherwise, it's just going to fall flat. For all of your understanding, for all of your wisdom, for all your experience, all of your intellect, whatever, that doesn't accomplish God's vision. You press forward, you do what you know to do, and you're asking God to give you the pieces to fill in the rest. Okay? So that the vision will come to pass. Listen, there's a lot of good sayings here. I want to read another one. You ready for another one?
Yes.
The creative power of vision will transform believers from church attendees to powerful leaders. Ooh, I like that. Sometimes people are in the church. Can I just tell you? Because I've been doing this for a while. There's oftentimes people in the church are saying, oh, I'm just called to be here and be supportive. Everyone's called to be a leader. Well, I don't know anything. And you've heard me say this one before. A first grader can still teach a kindergartner. So it doesn't matter what little you know. You oftentimes know more than somebody coming up behind you. And you just keep growing, right? One of the things that really fuels a hungry heart to learn more? You have somebody else that's asking you questions. And so you have to go find out what some of the answers are. So creative power vision will transform believers. That's us. From just coming to church, we just come to church, to being powerful leaders. But this vision will come in stages. It'll separate us from the world and carnal pleasures. Just comfort. It'll cause us to meditate and rehearse the vision in our minds. We'll keep on re-seeing it and re-seeing it, re-strengthening it. Huh? It'll cause us to pursue training. I want to know more what I need to know. Right? We want to go to that conference. We want to listen to that podcast. We want to watch that YouTube video. We're looking for things that speak to our vision. We plant seeds in others. And we stand in faith. Amen?